Sometimes, the deepest wounds don't come from actions, but from cruel words whispered by strangers who judge lives they don't know. It was a rainy Tuesday in March in San Francisco, and the Curry house was enveloped in a heavy silence that seemed to suck all the air from the environment. Can you perceive that there are moments when even the happiest homes carry a palpable sadness in their walls? The kitchen, normally filled with children's laughter and animated conversations, now echoed only with the soft sound of rain beating against the windows. Ayesha was sitting alone at the central island of the kitchen, still wearing pajamas at 3 in the afternoon. Her hands trembled slightly as she held her phone, her red and swollen eyes from crying so much fixed on the screen that reflected her pain like a cruel mirror. It's impossible not to feel the weight that social media can place on the shoulders of those who live under constant spotlights. Ayesha Curry appears unhappy beside her husband, read a headline that cut her heart like a sharp blade. Experts point to signs of crisis in the marriage, said another. Steph and Ayesha Curry, the end of a fairy tale? Each word was like salt in an open wound. Anonymous comments multiplied like poisonous viruses. She always seemed like a gold digger. Steph deserves someone better. I bet it's just a matter of time until divorce. How many times do we underestimate the destructive power of words typed by faceless fingers and compassionless hearts? The origin of all this media storm had been a single photo. An image captured by paparazzi during a charity event the previous week, where Ayesha appeared with a tired expression while Steph conversed with other guests. Nothing more than a natural moment of fatigue transformed into fuel for malicious gossip. What hurt her most weren't just the rumors, but the growing sensation that perhaps there was a grain of truth in them. Steph had been strange in recent weeks. He left early, returned late, answered calls in low voices, and isolated himself in the office for hours. When she asked about his day, he would smile and say, "It was normal." But his eyes carried a weight she couldn't decipher. Ayesha wiped away another tear and scrolled down on her phone, masochistically searching for more comments. It was like picking at a wound that refused to heal. "Celebrity marriage never lasts," read a post with thousands of likes. "Poor Steph, he must be regretting it," another user responded. The sound of a key turning in the lock made her quickly dry her eyes and hide her phone under a magazine. Steph entered through the kitchen door, hair slightly wet from the rain, carrying his training bag and a tired smile that couldn't completely hide the worry in his eyes. "Hi, love," he said softly, approaching to kiss her forehead. "How was your day?" Ayesha forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "It was quiet. The children are at your mother's house, remember?" Steph nodded, but immediately noticed something was wrong. 10 years of marriage had taught him to read the nuances of Ayesha's face like reading a familiar book. He saw the red eyes, the tense posture, the way she avoided his direct gaze. "Ayesha," he said, his voice loaded with a tenderness that made her heart race. "Are you okay? It looks like you've been crying." "No, I'm just a little tired," she lied, hating herself for not being able to be honest with the man she loved. But how to explain that she was being destroyed by rumors about their own relationship? How to admit that she was beginning to question whether she really knew the man with whom she had shared a bed for a decade? Steph moved closer, gently placing his hands on her shoulders. "You know you can talk to me about anything, right? We're a team, remember?" The word team echoed in Ayesha's mind with painful irony. Were they still a team when he left every morning without explanations and returned with vague excuses? Were they still partners when she felt like she was living with a polite stranger who only looked like her husband? "I know," she whispered, another tear escaping despite her efforts. "It's just, sometimes things get difficult, don't they?" Steph pulled her into a hug, and for a moment, Ayesha allowed herself to melt in the arms that were once her safe refuge. She could feel his heartbeat against her ear, the familiar scent of his cologne mixed with training sweat, the known texture of his T-shirt. But even within that embrace, an invisible distance persisted between them. Steph wanted to ask what was really happening, but the words seemed stuck in his throat. Ayesha wanted to confess her fears, but pride and insecurity built walls around her heart. "I'm taking care of everything," Steph murmured against her hair, a phrase he had repeated several times in recent weeks. "Trust me, okay? I'm taking care of everything." But Ayesha no longer knew what to trust. His words sounded sincere, but why couldn't he look directly into her eyes when he pronounced them? Why did his hands tremble slightly when he hugged her? What's most impressive is how love can coexist with doubt, how two people can be physically close and emotionally distant at the same time. In that moment, embraced in the kitchen while the rain continued its melancholic symphony outside, Ayesha and Steph were simultaneously the closest and most distant couple in the world, and neither of them imagined that the key, truth behind Steph's mysterious behavior, was something that would change everything forever. There are moments in life when unspoken words scream louder than any sound, and it's in these silences that the deepest relationships are tested. 3 days had passed since the conversation in the kitchen, and the atmosphere in the Curry house continued loaded with an invisible tension that seemed to grow every hour. Ayesha observed Steph from afar, like a detective trying to decipher clues from a mystery that involved her own heart. Can you perceive that when we begin to question who we love, every gesture becomes evidence of something that perhaps doesn't even exist? Steph left every morning at 7:30, exactly 15 minutes earlier than his normal training schedule. "I have an important meeting," he would say, kissing her forehead with the same tenderness as always, but avoiding her curious eyes. Important for whom? For what? The questions echoed in Ayesha's mind like painful echoes in a bottomless well. On Thursday afternoon, while folding clothes in the bedroom, Ayesha heard Steph talking on the phone in the office. His voice was low, almost whispered, but carried an urgency she rarely heard. "It needs to be perfect," he was saying. "She deserves for it to be perfect. No, I can't tell her yet." Ayesha's heart stopped for a second. She? Who was she? And what needed to be perfect? It's impossible not to feel when words we hear by chance have the power to destroy certainties we built over years. She approached discreetly to the office door, her heart beating so loud she feared Steph might hear it through the wall. "No, she can't know," he continued. "If she finds out before time, it will ruin everything. Trust me, I know what I'm doing." Tears began to form in Ayesha's eyes. 10 years of marriage, 3 children, a life built brick by brick. And now Steph was having secret conversations about a mysterious she? The pain in her chest was physical, as if someone was squeezing her heart with their hands. That night, after the children went to sleep, Ayesha found herself lost in memories of how it all began. How many times, when we're lost in the present, do we seek answers in the past? She closed her eyes and mentally transported herself to Davidson College 14 years ago. She was just a shy 19-year-old student, working part-time at the campus snack bar to pay for her studies. Steph was the basketball prodigy boy, already famous at the IPD University, but who always ordered the same sandwich and always smiled genuinely when she asked about his day. "You're different from other girls," he had said on a rainy October afternoon, much like recent days. "You see me as Steph, not as Steph the basketball player." "And what's the difference?" she had asked, nervously cleaning the counter. "The difference is that when you smile at me, I forget there's a world watching." What had conquered her most weren't his trophies or his growing fame, but the way he held her hand when they walked across campus, as if she were the most precious treasure in the world. How he stayed awake until late, helping her with calculus, even having training at 6 in the morning. How he chose to stay at Davidson an extra year just to finish college with her. "I want to build a life where you're my partner in everything," he had promised on the night of the marriage proposal. "Where there are no secrets between us, where every victory is ours, every challenge is ours." Now, sitting in her luxurious bedroom in San Francisco, Ayesha wondered where that boy who promised to have no secrets had gone. When had fame built walls around the heart of the man she loved? On Friday, Steph arrived home even later than normal. "Sorry, love," he said, looking exhausted. The meeting extended longer than expected. "What kind of meeting?" Ayesha asked, trying to sound casual, but her voice betrayed the tension she carried. Steph hesitated for a fraction of a second that seemed like an eternity. "Work stuff. Nothing much." Work stuff didn't explain why he was wearing a dress shirt instead of training clothes. It didn't explain why his hands smelled of subtle feminine perfume. It didn't explain why he avoided her eyes when he lied. That dawn, around 2 o'clock, Ayesha woke up and noticed Steph wasn't in bed. She found him in the office, sitting in his chair with his face in his hands. In the weak light of the lamp, she could see his shoulders, trembling slightly. Steph Curry was crying. In 10 years of marriage, she had seen him cry only 3 times. When his father was diagnosed with cancer, when Riley was born, and when they lost the baby they were expecting 5 years ago. Seeing him cry alone in the dark awakened in her a devastating mixture of love and terror. "Steph?" she whispered from the door. He quickly raised his head, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. "Hi, love. Couldn't sleep." "What's happening?" she asked, slowly approaching. "And don't tell me it's nothing. I've known you for 14 years. You're suffering, and that kills me inside." Steph looked at her for a long moment. A silent war fought in his eyes between the desire to confess and the need to keep the secret. It's a lot of pressure, you know? Sometimes I feel like I might disappoint everyone I love, including the mysterious she you've been talking to on the phone." The words came out before Ayesha could control herself. Steph's face paled. You heard?" "I heard, and I don't know what to think anymore, Steph. I don't know who you are anymore." He got up from the chair and took a few steps toward her, but Ayesha instinctively stepped back. The pain that crossed his face was like a stab to her heart. "Ayesha, please," he pleaded, his voice broken by emotion. "I know it's hard to trust me now, but I need you to hold on just a little longer. I'm taking care of everything. I'm taking care of us." "Taking care of us by lying to me?" she asked, tears flowing freely down her face. "Taking care of us by having secret conversations about other women?" "It's not what you're thinking," Steph said desperately. "Ayesha, I swear by the lives of our children, it's not what you're thinking." But the oaths of a man who had been caught in lies sounded like empty promises in the wind. Ayesha looked at him, really looked at him. and for a moment saw not the husband she knew, but a stranger who shared her bed and raised her children. "Then explain to me," she whispered. "If it's not what I'm thinking, explain to me what it is." Steph opened his mouth, but no words came out. The seconds of silence stretched like hours, and each moment of hesitation drove a new crack into Isha's heart. I can't." "Not yet," he finally admitted, and those words were like a death sentence for the trust that still remained between them. Isha nodded slowly, the pain transforming into cold determination. "Then I'll find out, for myself." And in that moment, standing in the dark office of her own home, Isha made a decision that would change everything. She would discover what her husband was hiding, even if it destroyed what remained of their marriage. Because sometimes, truth is more important than happiness. Some truths are so beautiful they hurt. And sometimes we discover that what we feared was, in reality, the deepest proof of love we could receive. The following Monday, Isha made the most difficult decision of her matrimonial life. She dressed in discreet clothes, put on sunglasses, and decided to follow Steph. Can you perceive that there are moments when love forces us to act against our own nature? She had never been the type of person who investigated her husband, but desperation can transform even the most trusting hearts into improvised detectives. Steph left home at 7:15 in the morning, as he had been doing for weeks. Isha waited 5 minutes and followed him, maintaining enough distance not to be noticed. Her heart beat like an uncontrolled drum as she drove through San Francisco's familiar streets, each traffic light being an eternity of anxiety. To her surprise, Steph didn't head to the Warriors Training Center. Instead, he parked in front of a discreet building downtown. A small sign at the entrance said, "Dr. Sarah Martinez, Couples and Family Therapy." It's impossible not to feel when our entire reality is reorganized in a matter of seconds. Couples therapy? Steph was doing couples therapy? But alone? Isha parked across the street, her hands trembling as she watched Steph enter the building. The confusion in her mind was total. If he was going to a couples therapist, why hadn't he told her? Why was he facing their relationship problems alone? 2 hours passed. 2 hours in which Isha remained in the car, lost in thoughts that crashed like furious waves against rocks. When Steph finally left the building, she made an impulsive decision that would change everything. She went in. "Excuse me," she said to the receptionist. "My husband Steph just left a consultation with Dr. Martinez. I'm Ayesha Curry. We need to talk to her." The receptionist hesitated, but something in Isha's desperate expression made her call the office. Minutes later, a middle-aged woman with gentle eyes appeared in the waiting room. "Mrs. Curry," Dr. Martinez said softly, "your husband spoke a lot about you. Please, come in." In the office, Ayesha sat in the same chair where Steph had been minutes before. "Doctor," she began, her voice choked, "I need to understand what's happening. Steph has been coming here for weeks, and I thought he was having an affair." Dr. Martinez looked at her with a compassion that disarms any defense. "Mrs. Curry, normally I couldn't break confidentiality, but your husband authorized me to speak with you if you ever showed up here. He said he knew you would eventually find out." "Find out what?" Ayesha asked, tears already forming. "That he's desperate to save your marriage." The words hit Ayesha like lightning in a clear sky. Save? But I didn't know our marriage needed to be saved. "Steph believes it does," the doctor explained gently. "He's been coming here for 2 months, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. alone, trying to learn how to be a better husband to you. Ayesha's world began to spin. I don't understand. Dr. Martinez leaned forward. Mrs. Curry, your husband feels tremendously guilty about the pressure that fame puts on your family. He believes that the media rumors, the social media comments, the invasion of privacy, all of this is his fault for choosing a public career. Have you ever wondered what it's like to discover that someone was carrying a pain you didn't even know existed? Ayesha felt as if she were seeing Steph for the first time. But there's more, the doctor continued. Can I show you something your husband brought in the last session? She opened a drawer and took out a shoebox. Inside, hundreds of small envelopes, each carefully labeled with future dates. What is this? Ayesha whispered. 3,650 letters, Dr. Martinez replied with a smile. One for each day of the next 10 years. Steph wrote a love letter to you for every day of the next decade. Ayesha picked up an envelope with trembling hands. The label said, For Ayesha, March 15th, 2025. On an ordinary day I want to make special. Inside, Steph's familiar handwriting. Love of my life. Today I woke up thinking about how beautiful you look when you laugh at your own jokes. I want you to know that I would choose you 1,000 times, in 1,000 different lives. Thank you for making even ordinary days extraordinary. Tears fell freely down Ayesha's face as she opened another envelope dated 5 years in the future. For the most incredible woman in the world on our 15th wedding anniversary, if you're reading this, it means we made it. That love conquered all storms. He's planning a vow renewal, Dr. Martinez explained softly. He wanted it to be a surprise. That's why the mysterious calls, the secret meetings. He was coordinating everything, the venue, the flowers, the invitation to your families, even a new prenuptial contract that completely protects your privacy. What's most impressive is how true love sometimes disguises itself as mystery to protect us. At that moment, the office door opened slowly. Steph appeared, his keys still in his hand, his face pale with surprise. Ayesha, how did you... I followed you, she admitted, still holding the letters. I thought you were cheating on me. Steph closed his eyes, pain crossing his face like a dark shadow. My God. Ayesha, I ruined everything, didn't I? Steph, Dr. Martinez intervened gently. Maybe it's time for you to talk honestly. Here, together. Steph sat next to Ayesha, maintaining a respectful distance. Love, he began, his voice trembling. I know I seemed distant, secretive, but I was trying to protect you. Protect from what? Ayesha asked. From me, from my career, from all the shit that comes with being married to me, he confessed, tears streaming down his face. When I saw those cruel comments about you, when I saw you crying because of rumors about us, I realized that my fame was destroying the person I love most in the world. He took a deep breath before continuing. Dr. Martinez, can I tell her what we talked about in the last session? The therapist nodded. Steph looked directly into Ayesha's eyes. I told her that if the rumors continued hurting you, if the pressure of being my wife was making you unhappy, I would give up everything. Basketball, contracts, fame, money, everything. I'd rather start over selling used cars and have you happy than be the best player in the world and see you suffering. The words echoed in the office like a sacred declaration. Ayesha looked at the man she loved, finally seeing not the famous Steph Curry, but the boy from Davidson who who promised to make her his partner in everything. And for the first time in weeks, she knew, with absolute certainty, that she still was. Some loves are tested by distance, others by time. But true loves are forged in the furnaces of mutual vulnerability. In Dr. Martinez's office, Ayesha and Steph sat side by side for the first time in weeks, without invisible barriers between them. The 3,650 letters were spread on the coffee table like petals from a giant rose made of words of love. Can you perceive that there are moments when honesty becomes the most important bridge between two souls? "Ayesha," Steph began, his voice loaded with a vulnerability she hadn't heard in years. "I need you to know that every night I came home and saw you sad, a part of me died inside." Ayesha took his hand, the first time they had truly touched in weeks. "Why didn't you tell me you were suffering too?" "Because I thought it was my responsibility to protect you from pain, not share it with you," he admitted. "I grew up thinking that men should carry the weight alone. My father never talked about his struggles with my mother." Dr. Martinez watched in silence as 10 years of poorly resolved communication finally found words. "Steph," Ayesha said softly, "do you remember when we were dating and you told me all your fears about the NBA? How you were afraid of not being tall enough, good enough?" "I remember," he whispered. "That made me feel important, special, like I was your real partner, not just your girlfriend," she continued, tears flowing silently. "When you stopped sharing your fears with me, I felt replaced. It's impossible not to feel when two people finally manage to say the truths they carried like stones in their hearts." Steph turned his body to face her. "Love, you were never replaced. You are irreplaceable. I was trying to be strong for you, but I ended up being distant. And I," Ayesha confessed, "started reading every cruel comment on the internet because, in some perverse way, they confirmed my fears of not being good enough for you." Steph placed his hands on her face with a tenderness that made time stop. "Ayesha Alexander Curry, listen well to what I'm going to say. You are too good for me. You always have been. I'm the one who spends every day trying to deserve the love you give me." They hugged there in the office, and for the first time, in months, the embrace didn't carry tension or unspoken doubts. It was the embrace of two people who had finally found each other again. "Can I show you the letters?" Steph asked when they separated. "For real this time?" During the following hour, Steph read some of the letters aloud. There were letters for bad days. "For when you feel invisible, remember that you are the light that guides my soul." Letters for future anniversaries. 15th anniversary. "Thank you for teaching me that love isn't a feeling, it's a daily choice." And even letters for ordinary days. "Today isn't special on the calendar, but it's special because you exist." What's most impressive is how true love finds ways to express itself that transcend the present time. "Steph," Ayesha said after hearing dozens of them, "these letters are the most beautiful thing anyone has ever done for me. But promise me something? Anything. Promise that next time you're planning something beautiful like this, you'll include me in the process? I want to be your partner in surprises, too. Not just the recipient of them." Steph laughed for the first time in weeks, a sound that Ayesha had forgotten how comforting it was. "I promise. Actually, I still want to do the vow renewal. But now, I want to plan it with you." 2 weeks later, in an intimate ceremony in their backyard, with only both families present, Steph and Ayesha renewed their vows. But this time, the vows were different. "Ayesha," Steph said, holding her, hands under a simple arch of flowers they had chosen together. I promise to share with you not just my successes, but also my insecurities. I promise that when the world tries to define us, I'll remember that we are the ones who define our love. Steph, she responded, her voice firm and full of certainty. I promise to stop seeking validation in strange voices and trust the only voice that really matters. Yours, whispering that you love me every night before sleep. But it was what happened after the ceremony that really changed everything. The following morning, Steph did something no one expected. He posted a video on social media. Not promotional, not professional, just him speaking directly to the camera from his kitchen. My name is Steph Curry, he began, and I want to talk about my wife. In recent months, I've read cruel comments about Ayesha, speculations about our marriage, judgments about a woman you don't know. His voice became firmer with each word. Let me tell you who Ayesha really is. She's the woman who slept in the hospital with me when my father was sick, who raised 3 incredible children while I traveled half the world, who built her own business empire while still finding time to pack my lunch. Have you ever wondered what happens when someone uses their platform not to promote themselves, but to protect who they love? If you want to criticize someone, Steph continued in the video, criticize me. But my wife is untouchable. And if this means losing fans, sponsorships, or anything else, so be it. Some values are more important than any career. The video went viral in hours, but not in the way critics expected. Supportive comments multiplied by the thousands. Men talking about how Steph inspired them to defend their own wives. Women thanking him for seeing a public man put his family above his image. 3 months later, Ayesha was in the same kitchen where it all began. But this time, she wasn't crying. She was smiling while reading one of the letters Steph had written for that specific day. If you're reading this on a sunny June morning, know that you're more radiant than the sun itself. How did he know it would be sunny? She laughed, showing the letter to Steph, who was preparing coffee. I didn't know, he admitted, kissing her forehead, but I knew that any day with you would be radiant. Riley ran into the kitchen, followed by her siblings. Mom, Dad, you're being cheesy again. Cheesy is not enough, Ayesha responded, pulling everyone into a family hug. We're epic. And there, in that kitchen that had witnessed tears of pain, now echoed with laughter of joy. Because some love stories aren't about never having problems. They're about choosing every day to work on problems together. Steph hung a simple photo on the wall. Him and Ayesha on the day of the vow renewal, not posing for the camera, but looking at each other as if they were the only people in the world. Under the photo, a plaque with the phrase that became their motto. True love is not the absence of storms, but 2 hearts that choose to dance together in the rain. And every night, before sleeping, Steph whispered in Ayesha's ear, "Thank you for choosing to love me, even when I made it difficult. Because in the end, love that resists everything is not the one that is never tested. It's the one that, even when broken, chooses to be rebuilt, stronger and more beautiful than before."